I'm Aziza of Gourmet Pens here. Are you looking for a fountain pen with the following features? Large ink capacity, vacuum filler with an ink shutoff valve so you don't spill your ink everywhere and burp it all over the place, a clear demonstrator for the sloshers in the group, or perhaps you want a selection of interchangeable nib units, or maybe you just like snazzy, iridescent, titanium, sexy trim. Okay, so maybe you just want a pen that you can long-term maintain and look after for yourself with all of the included tools. If that's the case, then watch on. We're going to look at the TWSBI VAC 700R Iris. TWSBI's packaging, I do appreciate it. It's very tidy, it's very consistent, and it's complete. Very easy to stack and store. The VAC, well, all the TWSBIs come with the label on the side indicating the pen. You get the little pamphlet guide thing. If you are new to fountain pens, it's worth looking at. It tells you how to open, close, fill your pen. But I have showed you how to do that. Shows you where to grease. The pen comes in this little snazzy box that you actually, I actually think it's a pretty nice box. The pen gets displayed on these little, oh, let me get rid of that, on these little teeth like that. And on the underside, you get silicone grease, which is for your, this thing. It shows you where to put it on the rod. I'm sorry, not on the rod, on the plunger thingy where I can see on that thing, so it slides up and down. You get extra O-rings because you can see there's an O-ring there, and I think there's another one here. No, just here. So you get extra O-rings, which is pretty nice. And you get your wrench. I'm gonna try, this thing is like stuck in here. So you get your wrench, and indeed this is just a protective film. You peel that off. And it shows you how to do it. So you put it up on the rod, top of the rod, and you unscrew. So that's pretty nice. Now, again, you don't need to disassemble this immediately. This is for like when you need to grease it, when it needs maintenance, if an ink really messes it up, whatever. So this is not something you need to do right away. So moving all that aside, there's packaging. I'm pretty content with the packaging. I would just love to see them get rid of the foam. I don't think that's really necessary. This is a larger pen, crystal clear body. It has a round, smooth barrel. The knob and the cap are faceted with the diamond type facets. You can see that. Very pretty. Rainbow titanium trim. Each pen is different, so it is iridescent. And this particular one is definitely more on the purple side. There are blue ones, like yellowy orange ones, quite pretty. And if you are looking for a particular color, it's just luck of the draw. It depends on what color you just happen to get. So if that's the kind of thing you don't like, you might need to buy this pen in person. It's got the nice iconic TWSBI finial, nice clip design. It's definitely usable. I do like that it doesn't add thickness to it, like it's a very low profile. I like that. The filling mechanism is a vacuum filler with a 2.37 milliliter ink capacity. That's pretty crazy. It has a shutoff valve, so right now it is closed, ideal for shorter writing periods, and if you need better ink flow, like if you need your ink to continue flowing for longer writing, you just unscrew this and it opens it up a bit. Just don't forget to close it back, especially if you're going to transport the pen with you anywhere. And if you do find that your pen runs dry, check the valve, because sometimes you just forget. So what you want to do is unlock it, and then you're going to pull this up, stick it in your ink, plunge it, and you've got a vacuum. Close off your valve, and that's pretty much it. Lots of nice colors on this. Some people hate it. Personally, I like the color. The center band is quite round and bulbous, so what I find is that the pen always, of course, it always rolls until it hits the clip. I don't that annoys me a little bit, but anyway. It says TWSBI and it says VAC 700R Taiwan. If we uncap the pen, it's got a longer section. This stuff up here is really uncomfortable. I find it very sharp. I mean, it is pretty far up, but if you have a really big grip, or if you find you have to hold higher up because you can't post this pen, it's not really meant to post, that can be uncomfortable. But otherwise, it's pretty good looking. You know, it's a good looking nib, steel nib, round breather hole, one slit, TWSBI decorations. The front part has the iridescent design on it, and it's a larger pen. This is how it fits in my hand. So as I said, it's not meant to post because this is loose. It's definitely back heavy. So the balance is weighted to the back, and that's the main issue for me. Let's stack it up against some other pens. So we're watching this video together. Writing sample is first happening on a Rhodia R dot pad. And I usually really like Rhodia dot pad. Sorry, it's not a Rhodia R, it's just the dot pad. And I usually really like the dot pad because it plays well with all of the pens that I have. And what I did find was that this one was a little bit skippy. And I'm pretty sure the reason for that is because the tines are like super tight. There's no light coming through them. And surprisingly, it's not a really dry writer. I think it's just that the combination of those really tight tines and the slightly smooth paper, like the slightly too smooth paper, probably combined with some hand oils on the page, just resulted in some skipping. And it didn't feel like the entire tip was making contact with the page. Now, in the next writing sample, I will show you that it performs perfectly fine on the Maruman Nemosai notebook, which is just not as, I guess, super smooth. And it's not, the particular pages that I was writing on were not particular, like they weren't oiled up or anything. So in extensive testing, it seems to perform better on paper that is not super smooth. And so, not a big deal. I still find the large broad nib very fun. It's very nice for showing off ink colors. It's nice for like big, noticeable writing. If you're looking for a signature pen, for example, and you know you don't want to break the bank, it's a great option with the nice broad nib. It's a nib that is suitable for customization, and if I may say so myself, because of the large ink capacity and the fact that this pen is heavier and I can't write with it for very long writing sessions, having a broad nib with the Toronto pen company Gourmet Pens Mod, which is basically taking your nib and making it as broad, juicy, and smooth as possible, that's going to be the combination for me. So no big deal. I'm looking forward to doing that because that's the kind of writing experience that I like. And, you know, if you're looking for a nib with a little bit of feedback, not scratchy, you know, it's just not a buttery smooth nib, this might be the nib style for you. And I'm not entirely sure, but I'm wondering if maybe the finish has something to do with the writing, like that feeling. You know, sometimes ruthenium coated or PVD coated nibs have like a feel to them. This might be the kind that has a feel to it. So, you know, if you don't like the broad, there's also extra fine, fine, medium. They also have a 1.1 millimeter stub nib. Interestingly, I used to really like the stub, and now I just find I prefer the round nibs for TWSBI pens, and most Jovos actually. So we have those as options. The nice thing, they have an inner cap in there, so if you cap it snug, I did find that it didn't really dry out, so that's a good thing. We've got this nice amount of ink to work with, so there you go. There's some writing, showing off the line variation, showing off fast writing, reverse writing. I'm using Maruman Nemosai paper. It's smooth, but not smooth like Rhodia. If we do some regular writing, that's what we'll do first. In terms of free weight, it does free weight right on paper that's not super smooth. I do have the valve open. Wetness, not super wet. Even with the valve open, it's not super wet, which is not a bad thing. Okay, so let's take a look at the skipping hard start factor. If we do some line variation, it's a pretty firm nib. So you can squeeze out a bit of wetness, you can get a wet broad, but you're not really, like, this is absolutely not a flexible nib. It's definitely a firm writer. Personally, I prefer my nibs a little bit softer, so this is on the firmer side. And if we do some loops, let's see what those look like. It does keep up pretty well with faster writing. Kept up pretty well there. No skips, no hard starts. I did this pretty quickly to see how it would handle the motion, and it took it quite well. The pros. Large ink capacity and a crystal clear barrel gives you great ink sloshing. It's a great price, $80 US, you get a lot out of this pen. Easy to fill, easy to maintain and clean and look after yourself because TWSBI provides all the tools you need. They provide the instructions. It's just really nice to get to know your pen. I believe in getting to know your tools. The clear body is great for those who like to matchy-matchy their pens because it's clear, you could put a whole bunch of colors in here, and the trim is multicolored, so you could put purple, blue, orange, yellow, like green. You know, it gives you the rainbow of ink color options. Since it's not a gusher, you could still enjoy a broad nib without waiting forever for your ink to dry. And if you want it a little wetter, you can have it tuned, and you can also open the valve to get a bit more consistent ink flow. And speaking of the valve, shut-off valve makes it safer for you to carry around, toss around, you know, without getting a big ink burp in your cap. Have you ever thrown around an eyedropper without a shut-off valve? Bad things happen. And lastly, you can also purchase separate nib units for the 700. Now, this particular one, of course, has the special colored nib, but, you know, if you really want a versatile pen with different nib options, you can still get the regular nibs. And I think it's a really nice option to allow you to use it, different nib options with the same body. I'm not crazy about this pen for one main reason, and it's the weight and the balance. I just find it a little too long and a little too heavy for my comfort. I prefer the size, the design, the weight of the 580. It just works better for me. And in this particular pen, the tines are so tight that it's a bit skippy on the smooth paper, and I personally like my writers like gushing, right? I like them super juicy, and I really do like very smooth nibs. So this one is just not the perfect nib for me. With some Toronto Pen Company Gourmet Pens tuning, it will definitely be more up my alley, but still, it's still a heavy pen for me. Next up, I don't really care for the shape of the barrel at the back. So it tapers here and then it flares out again. And so it's just a strange, for my eyes, it's just strange. And again, I prefer the 580 design, just suits me more. If it's something that worries you, clear pens can get stained by ink. You can disassemble this pen, you can clean it up as much as you want, but sometimes they just get irreparably stained. And one of the other things I didn't like was the sharp step up from the section to the barrel. It's not that I hold that far back. If you do, you might find it bothersome. It's just that thing just kind of bothers me. Maybe it's the look of it a bit more than the actual feel of it. I'm not sure. And as with most clear pens, this pen really shows fingerprints, oils, like grease, and so does the 580, so it's not special to just this pen. And especially now, while we're sanitizing with like hand sanitizers with moisturizer, and then like moisturizing because you're so dry from washing and sanitizing, you might find that it gets like extra gummy. So that's kind of icky if that bothers you. You could just keep a cloth, wipe it down really quick. Totally up to you. I wouldn't say it's a deal breaker, but it can make it slick in hand. It can make the section a little slick. So there we go. Those are my cons. TWSBI's idea is that you should be able to maintain your own pen, understand it, be able to assemble it, disassemble it when necessary, not just, you know, willy-nilly. And I do really appreciate that because I think it's fantastic to get to know your tool, and I really like that they include everything. For $80 US, you get the whole package, and if you get a bum nib, I would say I mean, it's not a bum nib, it's just not my favorite writer. So I would say factor in like $20 to $30 to get it nib-meistered, and you know, you're basically looking at 110 US for like a full package pen, large ink capacity, vacuum filler, and it's actually a really, you know, it's a pretty fair deal. I think it's a pretty decent price for what you're getting. The cons outweigh the pros in this particular model because of the size and the weight of the balance. I definitely prefer the 580. Now, very interesting consideration. For 110 at most, right? Like if you want to get it nib-meistered 110 or 80, just straight up retail, you've got a vacuum filler, large ink capacity, which is considerably less expensive and therefore makes a fantastic alternative to the Pilot Custom 823, which has a gold nib, but otherwise is the same pen. Like it's got the same filling system, and you know, if the vac works for you in terms of comfort and everything, why not? And I love the Pilot, but for 80 bucks, that's a really good price. Throw in the nib-meister work, and then, you know, you still have a good pen, right? Like you still have a pen that's going to write really well and perform well, so long as its comfort suits you. So my friends, there you go. I hope this was somewhat helpful to you, and if it was, you know the deal. Like, subscribe, notifications, share, whatever you want to do. Let me know below if you have any questions or comments or thoughts on the TWSBI and the vacs and all that kind of stuff. And thank you so much for watching. Take care, and you can find me on the socials on the next screen. Bye!